Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, how are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new Fallout 76 video, and it is patch day. Expeditions are finally arriving. The servers are down at the moment and Bethesda are deploying the update, so in the meantime, let's have a little look at the patch notes and see what all the new stuff's all about. Okay, yeah, so Expeditions update. Obviously, Expeditions are the big thing here, and it's looking pretty cool. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into that a little later on. Should be good fun. So that's the big part of all this update, and the majority of the patch notes are focused on that, but there's a whole bunch of other cool stuff in here as well that I'm looking forward to having a look at. There's some interesting other changes in here to talk about as well. So, let's dive into this. Patch notes. Okay, so epic shot of the Union power armor. The art on that is really nice. Again, Bethesda nailing it with the artwork. So, the Pitt update notes, September 13th, 2022. Yikes, September already. The latest update for Fallout 76 launches today, and it brings the expedition system to Fallout 76, which will take you beyond Appalachia's borders for the first time as you embark on missions to the Pit. It also introduces Fallout 76 Season 10 and a slate of new rank-up rewards, as well as new gameplay improvements and bug fixes, as we might expect. So we've got a general overview here. To be honest, most of it points straight towards the expedition stuff, but that's fine. And a little bit on the scoreboard as well. So, patch size, we are looking at, quite the difference here. If you're on Steam, you're doing okay, 23.5 gigabytes. Still big, but on the other hand, if you are on Xbox, you're at the opposite end of the scale and much less lucky, because that's 80.8, with the PC, Microsoft Store, and PlayStation being in the 70s. That's a heck of a difference. God knows why, but that's massive. So yes, if you are updating this one on Xbox or Microsoft Store, i.e. Xbox Game Pass, or if you're on PlayStation, be prepared for a big update for this. Obviously, you're not going to need that as extra space, maybe to download the update. It will be replacing a whole bunch of files as well, but yeah, you might need some headroom there, just to be aware of. But, introducing Expeditions and the Pit. This is the big thing. So we're introducing the expedition system, which will take you and up to 3 teammates beyond the reaches of Appalachia for the first time in order to complete challenging, repeatable missions. While anyone can participate in an expedition, we currently recommend being at level 50 or above for the best experience, and I've got to second that one. Having played it a fair bit on the PTS, I would say if you're under level 50, it might technically be doable, but it's going to be a heck of a slog. There's a lot of tough enemies in there. Some of the objectives are going to be hard to complete, and if you're solo, they'll be really hard to complete if you are not sort of fully geared up for an endgame build, so it's something to bear in mind. So, we have quite a sizable chunk of stuff here. So if you guys want to pause this and have a look at it, then you absolutely can do. I'll link it down below as well if you want to check that out. We'll jump onto the rewards bit in detail in a moment, and we'll save some time and go for a general overview. So, Expeditions in a nutshell. The White Spring has changed, the responders have moved into the hotel, and it is now divided into 2 parts. Firstly, there is the old shopping mall, which is downstairs. You remember where that is, where all the robots are? That's basically in the same place, but it is now a separate load zone instance to the refuge, which is the upstairs bit, where the bar is and where Bubbles is, and basically everything else. So those are now separated off, and you can head to the refuge, which is, as I say, that upstairs area. It's instance, and that's where all the responders are hanging out. You will get from there refuge daily quests. There are 4 of them. You have to do 3 per day. 2 of them give you 25% of the resource you need to launch an expedition. That's ultrasight battery charges. Those 2 stay the same, and the other 50% comes from the 3rd refuge daily that you will do, which gives you, as I say, the other 50%. There are 2 of those, 2 50% dailies, and those alternate, coming from different characters. That's Code Blue and Refugee's Guide, something like that. I forget the name of the second one off the top of my head, but yes, so 2 that stay the same and 2 that will switch out each day, so a little bit of variety in that. They don't take too long to do, they're reasonably manageable. Once you've got them done, you can then launch an expedition. You have 2 missions available, Union Dues and From Ashes to Fire. That's for now. Obviously, Bethesda are planning to add more later on. That will probably take a while. I wouldn't expect it to happen for probably a year at least, as it will involve creating entirely new locations, because each of these missions takes place in its own location. So I would anticipate that taking quite a while before they add more, but they are going to do so. So for right now, we've got 2 missions. You can pick either one as soon as you've got the necessary ultrasight charge, and head off to the Pit, where you'll find a 3-part mission you meet up with your contact, who will give you an initial mission, which will be in sort of the first area you arrive in. Then you meet up with them again at a new location, and they will give you part 2, which will involve going into an internal area, which is also generally quite large, with a whole load of submissions in there, and there will be optional objectives as well. You really do want to be doing those optional objectives and making sure you get those done and turned in before you finish off the main ones, because that's where you get the extra bonuses and extra worthwhile rewards. And then when you completed the main mission, turn that in, and you head back over to your contact again. You'll get a kind of final boss fight type deal, or final event anyway, at the end of the expedition and before you head back to Appalachia. So the whole thing's probably going to take, I'm going to guess, about 45 minutes, including the dailies. Maybe a little bit longer the first couple of times you run it. And obviously once you get the feel for it, it'll shrink down. So that's the general gist of how expeditions work. As I say, more details here if you want to read through it. I've also done a full guide video that went up this morning, you may or may not have seen. I will link it somewhere up here and down in the description as well if I remember. Hopefully I will. If you want to check that out, it's quite a long video, but it goes through everything, the whole darn system. So if there's anything you want to know, you can check it out. I've also put chapters on there as well, so you can find specific details if you're interested as well. But the really interesting bits, there's a couple of key points in here, and then we'll take a look at the rewards section, which has got a bit of interesting detail in as well. One note here that is worth having a quick look at, and that is that you can complete refuge dailies and lead an expedition once per day, but you can join as many other expeditions as you'd like. So you can only launch one as a team leader once per day, but there's no limit to the number of times you can join other people's expeditions. So something to bear in mind there. They've also added an expeditions public team. I've no idea if that's on top of the ones that exist or if they've replaced one that wasn't getting used. We'll have to wait until we jump in and actually see that. But there is now a public team for expeditions as well. So, with that covered, let's have a look at reaping your rewards, the actual rewards part of expeditions. So, each time you finish a mission, you will earn up to 5 legendary items based on how many primary and optional objectives your team has completed. So, 5 are legendaries if you complete everything, and less if you don't. And you will also receive 1 legendary module with a chance to earn a second, some legendary scripts, some treasuring or some treasury notes, loot, and XP, so fairly standard there. In terms of 1 legendary module, it's nice that we're getting legendary modules from something. As it stands, those are the hardest thing to get. Now you'll get 1 from expeditions each time you complete 1, possibly 2. I think they could probably stand to make it a little bit higher, maybe 3, something like that, as they are way behind the number of legendary cores we get from events and stuff like that. So I still think there's a little bit of a balance to be rejigged on there, but on the other hand, we have also got the purveyor to dive into, so we'll have to see how that actually balances out once we get in there, because obviously right now modules are lagging way behind the cores in terms of the number I've got, so I imagine I'm far from alone on that one. So, once per week you will earn a random item from the pool of rare expeditions themed rewards by completing all optional objectives during a mission. So you have to get all of the optionals, and once per week you'll get a rare reward. Those rare rewards are the same list that are available from Giuseppe, who is a trader inside the White Springs Refuge. He will take the new stamps currency off you, and you can use those to buy the rewards that relate to expeditions, a specific set of rewards. Some of it's mods for weapons, some of it's mods for power armor, there's camp stuff, there's outfits, there's weapon skins, so there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that you can check out. Important note here, before we go on any further, for the next couple of days, you will not actually be able to get that weekly rare reward. There is an issue with it for some reason they've not specified here, but they plan to hotfix that issue as soon as possible. So hopefully that will be on Thursday, assuming they can get the hotfix ready to roll by then. The idea being that you'll still have a chunk at the end of the week in order to actually get this week's extra rare reward. Everything else is working fine, it's just that particular thing that they know is not quite ready for today. So rather than delay the whole thing over one little plan, they're going to push on ahead and fix it hopefully on Thursday. So bear that in mind, if it doesn't pop up, that's why. Fingers crossed they'll get everything working in good time, so hopefully that'll be fine. So, the rare rewards can include mods for the Auto Axe, Union Power Armor, new outfits, Pitt-themed furnishings for your camp, and more. Yeah, so the stuff I mentioned before. Big key point, there are no duplicates in this weekly reward system, so if you've already learned to plan, you will not receive it as your weekly rare reward, assuming you get one. So that's definitely a bonus, makes it a little bit, it eliminates that RNG element somewhat, which is always welcome. Of course, it doesn't mean we'll get through the list that much quicker as well, so swings and roundabouts in a way, but nonetheless, not having duplicates is generally a good thing, I think, and it probably means everything is not tradable as well. I would think the expedition's rewards won't be tradable, so Something to bear in mind. And that timer resets at 12 PM Eastern every Tuesday, so that's basically the same time everything else resets. Daily ops, the weekly challenges and stuff for the scoreboard, all that stuff, they all change over at 12 PM Eastern anyway, so it's basically changing at the same time as everything else, which makes sense. So with the arrival of expeditions, we're introducing a new in-game currency called stamps. All expeditions participants will earn stamps every time they complete a mission, and completing optional objectives will increase the number you get. There you go, simple as. The expedition leader will get a few extras due to the effort required to complete the refuge daily quests and charge up the vertibird's battery. That makes sense to me. Reaching back to that thing of joining other people's expeditions, the leader must have completed the dailies in order to launch the expedition. However, if you're joining a group and you are not the group's leader, you don't have to have done that. Only when you're launching one do you need to have that ultrasight charge. Of course, if the leader backs out for some reason, you will also get booted, so bear that in mind. You're obviously attached to your leader in that way. But that basically covers most of expeditions. As I say, do check out the video I did if you want to see a heck of a lot more detail on the subject, and you can read through this in your own time as well. So we'll take a road trip to the City of Steel during Season 10. So this is the new season that will also be starting today. Definitely looking forward to getting stuck into this. There's some really cool stuff on this scoreboard. So ride along with Red Rocket for a road trip to experience the sights and sounds of Sterling, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Taking the breathtaking views of the city's towering skyline, get acquainted with its friendly, hard-working citizens, and explore its rich history at the centre of US steel production. Do all this and more as you rank up in all-new Fallout 76 Season 10 scoreboard. Red Rocket Across America presents the City of Steel. So there's your background. So we've got a host of new rewards, as per. You've got the usual paints for weapons, armour and power armour. We've got pit themes and amenities for the camp, we've got outfits, cosmetics, consumables, in-game currencies, and more. So we also have add to your stamp collection. Several ranks on the scoreboard have the new currency stamps. You put a few extra stamps in your pockets by reaching those ranks. Yeah, and of course there are a few extra ones as well for Fallout First members as well. So unlocking new gear as you rank up. Now this is a new thing on the scoreboard. In the past we've had skins and consumables and everything else that we've already talked about. We've not had actual out-and-out new gear before. We have a new weapon, we have new power armor, full new sets on the scoreboard this time around. That includes the auto axe and the Union power armor. The auto axe obviously being an automatic melee weapon, which we'll be touching on again in a minute. And the Union power armor is power armor that looks pretty cool. It's got a distinct style to it. The artwork at the top should give you an idea. Those are available across the scoreboard at varying ranks. If you happen to miss out on them in Season 10, do not panic. Once the season is over, they will go into Giuseppe's inventory in the White Springs Refuge, and you'll be able to buy them for stamps instead, so you'll still be able to access them. It will take a little longer, but you'll be able to do it. There we go. That's basically the season. A couple of links there to the community calendar and more information on the seasons as well. So, additional design changes and improvements. So there's some cool stuff in here that is outside of the expedition system, which is quite cool. So top of the list, some Appalachian changes in certain points of interest, like the White Springs Resort, the Rusty Pick, Crater, Foundation, Fort Atlas. Players can now fast travel directly into those locations or to its exterior. So we currently have the exterior locations you can fast travel to. Now you'll get a little pop-up giving the option, do you want to go outside or do you want to go inside? So for the White Spring and the Rusty Pick, I get that, because a lot of the time you will want to go straight inside. Crater, okay, yeah, that will make sense as well, because Mortimer and Meg are in that internal space, and you might want to head straight into them, as opposed to, say, being outside so that you can get in touch with any of the raiders outside, or go and find Minerva if she happens to be at Crater. Fort Atlas, that kind of seems only useful during the Steel Dawn, Steel Rain quest lines, but so a little more situational, but okay. One I really don't get is Foundation. I can't think of a great many occasions where you're going to need to fast travel to an inside location at Foundation, unless it just means you're further up the driveway, which would that would make life a bit easier, but otherwise it's a bit of an odd one, that one, seeing as everybody's outside anyway, so I don't get that one, but we'll see. Maybe it'll be self-explanatory when we jump in later on today. Additionally, there is a new White Spring North entrance fast travel point which has been added to the White Spring Resort. Players can discover it on foot and use it to travel directly inside the White Springs Mall. So yeah, as I said before, the White Springs internal space is now divided into two separate areas. There's the refuge and the mall is separate. They've added an extra fast travel point so you can skip the extra loading screen and go straight into the shopping centre if you want to. So yeah, that's definitely a good add as well. Oh, there it is. I missed this one. I was wondering about this before. Purveyor Murmur. Players can now purchase up to 100 legendary modules and 500 Vault Steel at once from Purveyor Murmur. I'm having a hard time saying her name today. There we go. So no longer will you be stuck to just a handful. You'll be able to buy 100 a day. So that was the thing I was unsure about. So that's definitely good. It means a lot more modules will be available to us. So hopefully those will catch up a little bit with our legendary cores now. And at the White Springs Resort, a legendary exchange machine and a gold press machine have been added into Artisan's Corner. So that's the section in the shopping mall where all the workbenches are. There's now a place you can turn in your legendaries, and there's a place you can gain gold bullion as well. So yeah, it makes that spot a little bit more convenient and practical and a bit more of a one-stop shop, which it's been moving in that direction anyway, the White Springs shopping mall, so definitely a cool thing to see. So, items. Automatic melee weapons is the big change out here. It's something we've been waiting for a very long time, and with the addition of the auto axe, this makes complete sense to time it now. Legendary versions of auto melee weapons like the chainsaw, ripper, and drill can now be crafted at weapons workbenches, and they can drop as legendary loot from events, quests, and enemies. On top of which, as a key point as well, they've all been changed so that they can now rank up all the way to level 50, so you can get a level 50 chainsaw instead of being limited to a level 20 or 25 or whatever it is. So the upshot of this is that automatic melee weapons, like the chainsaw, are now actually usable and viable weapons. If you want to have that chainsaw build of your dreams, run around playing Leatherface, you absolutely can do now, and it will actually be a relatively decent build. Obviously the auto axe that's coming in the season and will later go into Giuseppe's inventory is sort of king among the automatic melee weapons. It's definitely the most effective of them. It looks like it's going to be an absolute beast, that thing, if you're into it. But for those who want to give it a go, definitely looks very, very cool. You can build your builds around that and dive into expeditions and get the mods you need to get the best components for it as well. So, this is one now that I am not a big fan of, to be honest. Starting gear changes. With today's update, we've included some adjustments to the starting experience for dwellers who are taking their first steps out of Vault 76. The following changes should help new players feel more prepared as they begin their journeys in Appalachia. New dwellers will now receive the following items as they exit Vault 76. A 10mm pistol with 200 ammo, a combat knife, a light leather torso armor, a small backpack. You'll still need to find and learn the plan in order to craft one, but if you've already got one, why do you need to craft one? A variety of consumables including stimpaks, radaway, antibiotics, food, water, a Vault-Tec supply package, scrap and repair kits. Now, I'm not sure if that's on top of the stuff that we already get or not. I'm guessing some of it will be, but we also already do pick up some of that stuff on the way out, so swings and roundabouts, we'll have to wait and see. That probably will be a while because I don't see myself starting a new character for a while. In addition, they will now receive the Vault Fed buff that will prevent hunger and thirst from increasing for your first 2 hours. And finally, resistances and damage for creatures in the level 1 to 15 range have been reduced to help smooth out early combat. So there's a couple of things I don't like here. Personally, I think putting a 10mm pistol in your hands just makes pipe weapons even less worthwhile to the player. Now, a pipe revolver, maybe a pipe rifle briefly might be useful, but previously you could actually get, at least for a few levels, a decent amount of use out of a pipe gun. Now, there's absolutely no point in picking it up if you've got a 10mm pistol straight out the vault, because you can easily get new ammo for a 10mm pistol, and it's more effective than a pipe pistol is anyway, so it just takes that whole subset of weapons and makes them a lot less useful. Combat knife, fine. Leather torso armor, yeah, makes very little difference. Small backpack, I think that's just making life easier at a time when it really doesn't need to be made easy. You pick it up quick enough in the main story anyway. Extra supplies and stuff like that, well, they're moving away from the survival thing, but again, you don't really need to be leaving the vault with all that stuff anyway. And reducing the damage and resistances of creatures in the 1 to 15 range, well, to be honest, they're not that challenging in that range anyway. It's really after that that the challenge starts ramping up a bit anyway, until you get to those end-game builds where it falls off again. Yeah, for me, this whole let's make an already easy game easier thing is a sizable stride in the wrong direction, I think. I don't think that is a good change at all, and I mean, it's not the end of the world, it's going to make no difference to my life, but nonetheless, in general principle, I think it's a massive step in the wrong direction. So, bug fixes. We'll have a little scroll through this, and you guys can take a look and see for yourselves if you want to, and pause. I will try and just pick out some of the ones that look particularly interesting and worth commenting on, because as we can see, this list is quite sizable, which is fairly standard. It's about what we would expect, really. So, yeah, let's just have a look at the cool stuff. We've got a whole load of camp stuff. That sounds interesting to me. So, we've got camp objects can no longer be placed on top of Zerzo's spaceship. Not sure what the benefits and pros and cons to that are. I wonder if people are using it to glitch, maybe, but in either case, it is what it is. Chairs. Players can now sit on modular sofas. I ran into that one. I used the modular sofas when I did a English pop build a little while ago, and yeah, I was trying to sit on those sofas and I couldn't. I assumed it was because I had furniture too close to it. Well, apparently that was just a bug. I didn't realise that. But there we go. That's a cool change. Chain link door now plays correct sound effects when destroyed. Addressed an exploit that could allow a player to have 2 active camps at once. Good, that's less server loads, that's always a good thing. Different types of radiation dummies now share the same row in the build menu's floor decor category. So that should take up less space, which is cool, tidies things up ever so slightly. Crafting requirements for the floating face flagon are now consistent in camp menu and in the Tinker's Bench. When the Firewatch Tower is connected to power, lights placed on the tower's upper beams now have power correctly. Okay, so actually it works as a proper conduit now, which is cool. Camp allies and collectrons can now correctly walk on the roof of the destroyed trailer. More things we're finding out that you can actually do up there. Might have to play around with that again sometime. We'll have to see what we can come up with. Players can now shoot and throw grenades through gaps in the walls of the destroyed trailer when it is in a destroyed state. Interesting. Tipsy Tom vending machine variants now animate correctly after being repaired. Wall decor items no longer sink into walls that have Order of Mystery wallpaper applied. What about all the other wallpapers that happens on? Flat wall decor like posters, paintings, pennants, scoreboards, etc. no longer sink into walls that have wallpaper applied. There we go, that answers that question, doesn't it? That's definitely a very good change. Decorating walls has been a pain sometimes with certain items, so glad to see that happening. Definitely happy about that. The Stripes, Haunted House, and Order of Mystery wallpapers now correctly oriented when applied to triangle walls. Didn't even notice that, that's cool, guess I haven't used those. Now fix an issue where Tinker's workbench in Player's Camp can sometimes become unusable and unmovable. Again, haven't encountered that one, but that's good as well. So, some challenge updates. Dailies. Crafting or scrapping alien blasters and VATs unknown will correctly progress the craft or scrap a ranged weapon daily challenge. Doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? Using a repair kit to repair an item inside the stash now correctly progresses the repair armor, weapons, or power armor challenge. Crafting and scrapping headwear and underarmors now correctly progresses the craft or scrap clothing, armor, or weapons challenge. And they fix an issue that could cause treasure hunter mole miners and prime mole rats to progress the glowing creature weekly challenge, even though they're not glowing. Ooh, this is interesting. Melee combat change. Continuously circling around certain enemies, like cave crickets, wolves, Mr. Handybots, no longer prevents them from attacking the player. Kind of wish I'd known about that beforehand. But there we go. That makes these enemies slightly more dangerous, particularly the cave crickets, and to a lesser degree the wolves, but mostly the cave crickets. On death, bloodbugs now have a chance to drop meat as loot. Okay, so that's been a thing for ages, actually. They haven't been dropping meat, and yet I think there are things in the game that require that as for a recipe, so that's a good change. And dog-type enemies, like mongrels and wolves, now run after attacking the player instead of always walking. Okay, so we've got some events changes here. Some of them are more interesting than others, so you might want to have a thumb through this yourself. Bots on Parade stands out to me. All enemies during the event are now hostile to the player by default and can be targeted in VATs. Yeah, they weren't always coming up as hostile in that event, so that's a good fix. So, line in the stand, quest targets no longer appear on scorched beasts that spawn during the event. They'll just flap around and you gotta shoot them, so that's just a little thing. Missing persons. So this is one from the Brotherhood of Steel quest line. Scribe Valdez's dialogue near the end of the quest now correctly matches the player's current quest progress. So, yeah, that could be annoying stroke confusing. So that's definitely a good fix. That should play the right dialogue at the right time now. Nice. Path to Enlightenment. This one's been an issue for a little while. Glad to see this fixed. The Wise Mothman now correctly appears in front of the Landview Lighthouse after completing the event. Yeah, there have been a few occasions where he hasn't popped up. It's not every time, but it's too many times. So good to see that particular issue fixed. So got a couple of fixes to test your metal as well here. So just an issue in which Grimbots could clip through the western wall of the Rust Eagle Arena and leave the event area. And the golden eye bot should no longer become stuck when trying to enter or exit the arena. So that should make hitting that golden eye bot that bit easier if he actually comes into the quest area. Okay, so we've got a few item changes here that are interesting. So allies, plans for Catherine Swan and Zerzo are now visible in Samuel's inventory and can be purchased using gold bullion by players who haven't learned them. So these are two allies that were available in previous seasons. You can now pick them up from the bullion vendors, which is cool. Don't know if this also applies to Daphne and Maul or not, or if they were already there, but it might be worth having a look if you're interested in finding either of those folks as well. So check out the bullion vendors for those. It's definitely a win. Samuel's inventory is the one it's specifically talking about here, so I'd recommend checking out Foundation, because we know it works. That's cool. Alien blaster rounds have been reduced in weight and crafting requirements to match fusion cells. That's nice, that makes them a bit easier to craft. You can now apply atomic camo, free states and red viper paints to urban scout armor, so that's cool. Lunchbox effects now correctly trigger for nearby players even if they aren't within sight of the lunchbox owner. So that means they should be working a little bit more reliably as long as you're just nearby. I've had a few occasions where I would have expected to pick up the XP buff and didn't get it, even though I was standing quite close by, so that's good to know about. The extra limb damage mod now correctly adds 25% increased damage to limbs, and the extra chance to cripple weapon mod now adds 20% chance to cripple. So, yeah, not particularly popular mods, but good to know those are now working properly. The Pro-Snipe Deluxe camera will now register targets more consistently when zoomed in and when the player is moving. Okay, that's cool. There's a whole bunch of changes to this, actually, including the fact that there's now the option to choose whether or not you want to save a picture. So if you point your camera at whatever you need for a quest, for example, as long as it's tagged and it shows that that thing is showing up inside the picture, you can choose to take the picture without saving it. It won't go into your photo reel, it won't take up space on your console in particular, but also for PC players too. And you won't need to then clean out photos that you don't want either. So that's definitely a win, and you'll still advance the quest, which is a nice little quality of life change, which I'd have thought they'd have mentioned up top, but they didn't. So the dual bar mod for the chainsaw now correctly increases the weapon's damage, but they're aware of a related visual issue in which the damage stat in the crafting menu may not reflect the bonus damage from it and from other chainsaw mods as well. So your stats may not appear correctly, but they will be applied correctly, even though they're not necessarily listed. So I'm guessing that's going to get fixed on down the line. And they fixed an issue that caused charging weapons to deal less damage than intended when not fully charged. It's always nice. Gauss shotgun now counts as an energy weapon in addition to its other weapon types, and correctly benefits from perk cards and buffs that affect energy weapons. So bear that in mind if you're using a Gauss shotgun and you have any mutations that might reduce the effectiveness as well, as that will be impacting your damage output. Short and long barrel mods for the Flamer no longer conflict with range reductions applies by nozzle mods. So yeah, one of the big things here is that most of the major issues, as I understand it, for the Flamer have been fixed, in that you will no longer have to change the barrel out over and over when you log in. It will just give you the right range. The slight drawback to this is that certain nozzle mods do reduce the range in the way that they are supposed to, whereas before they weren't necessarily doing that. That does mean things like, I forget which one it is, but there's one particularly high damage nozzle for the Flamer that will now dramatically reduce its range. So that's your choice. You can either have range and less damage, or you can get right up in the enemy's face. But on the whole, it does work better. It's balanced, which is obviously what they were going for, but the previous issues that were a bugbear for Flamer users, definitely fixed. Fire rate increasing mods now work properly on lever action rifles, so that's cool. A couple of changes to 50 cal mods for the hunting rifle as well. Still doesn't look like that's going to be a particularly effective weapon endgame, but there are a couple of changes. So 10mm SMGs and with the tweaked automatic receiver and gamma guns with signal repeater mod are now correctly affected by the gorilla perk card. I think that's automatic pistols card, isn't it? Something like that, which is quite cool. Gyro compensating lens for the laser guns now works properly. The mods unlocked portion of the crafting menu now correctly displays a total of 65 available mods for the pipe gun instead of 66. And Gatling laser, plasma and ultrasight Gatling lasers can no longer spawn with the quad legendary attribute. That's interesting. So Gatling lasers, plasmas and ultrasight Gatling lasers can no longer be quad. Don't think that's a big deal, really. If you've got the right perks on, you've already got absolutely tons of shots anyway, and there are far more useful things on those weapons in particular than the quad mod. Basically, you need to focus on mods that have faster time to kill rather than just having more shots to unload on your enemies. So in a sense, if you're using those, that's kind of offsetting some bullet sponginess, which is quite cool. Well, laser sponginess perhaps might be a better word, but still, good to know. You will no longer pick up quad versions of those weapons, which also means that any that are already quad are now legacy. Not a big issue, though. It's not going to massively impact anybody else's game, so I'm not too concerned about that one. Electric Absorption. The description of the perk card now correctly communicates that it heals the player in addition to its other effects. So we did have to wonder whether or not the fact Electric Absorption healed the player was a bug or not. Turns out it's not. The card now actually states that it does that rather than it being kind of a surprise bonus. So that's good. It clarifies that a little bit. And the Glow Sight perk card now correctly applies bonus damage to Wendigo spawns during a colossal problem. So a few UI changes. Character levels that are 4 and 5 digits long. What do you mean 5 digits long, Bethesda? Who the hell's got level 10,000 or higher? Somebody who needs to get a life, man. I jest, of course. But still, those will now display correctly on the map as well in the social and play menus. Jesus, 5-digit level numbers. Crikey. On PC, the bulk crafting slider now closes correctly after using the crafting menu buttons at the bottom of the screen. Okay, not something I do, so I hadn't noticed. And loading screens. Event details now correctly display on loading screens when joining a public event. Yeah, sometimes those didn't always show the right thing. Fix an issue that could cause elements of the UI to flicker when interacting with the map, or after interacting with the map, rather. Notifications that appear after learning plans for the Brahmin Grill, Milk Vending Machine, Grim Reaper, Vault Boy Cutout, and Tinker's Workbench now correctly display the appropriate item names. That clarifies a bit. And fix an issue that could cause the standard rank 100 rewards appear incorrect for players who claim to Fallout first rank rewards. So just a little visual thing there. And Drop Site V9. Entering a pre-placed set of power armor at Drop Site V9 no longer causes a control lock. Created multiple locations throughout Appalachia where attempting to use pre-placed furniture could result in a brief control lock. And fixed several locations where the player could become stuck. So there we go. Really long list of stuff there, as per usual. So expeditions, most of that we already know. There's a few good little additional changes, but obviously with this, the expeditions are the key point. So yeah, looking forward to jumping into that tonight. As I said, I have already done a detailed guide on that one if you do want to check out everything there is to know about it. I will link that in the corner. It's up here somewhere above my noggin. And it'll be down in the description as well if you do want to check that one out. So there's chapters and everything, so you can find what you're looking for in a decent amount of detail as well. And work through the whole thing if you want to sort of crash course on it. But, yeah, pretty happy with this one. Looking forward to trying out the new season. Looking forward to getting stuck into expeditions. There's a whole load of good changes in here. There's a couple that, frankly, don't affect me generally, but I still don't entirely approve of on general principle, but it is what it is. What can you do? Seems like the wrong step to me, but it's not the end of the world, is it? But yeah, on the whole, this update looks pretty darn promising so far, and I'm looking forward to getting back into it this evening. So, thank you very much for watching, folks. I do hope you found this useful and informative. If you did, please do hit subs and likes. I do very, very much appreciate it. Down below, as always, social media links, merch store, channel memberships, all those other buttons down there that really, really help out. Massively appreciate that from those who have done that. Hugely helps out. Thank you very much. And if you get the chance to join us for live streams, we are, of course, about to jump into expeditions and everything else, and we will be starting something rather new tomorrow, which is looking like being Dead Space 2, which should be good fun. So I do hope you'll join us for that one as well. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.